Hey, Dad, let's go to the Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favrates.com and go with the home team at Mississippi Farm Bureau. Luke Johnson joins us right now. Former player at Southern Miss, co-host of the Eagle Hour on SuperTalk Hattiesburg and SuperTalk Laurel. Luke, what's the latest on Southern Miss? We got the information earlier this week that Scotty Walden had tested positive for COVID. Is there concern about whether or not this game is going to be played at Liberty on Saturday, or does it look like all systems are go?
Well, that's the $2 million question. Good afternoon, Richard. Yeah, the Scotty Walden going down Tuesday. Tim Billings is the acting head coach. Possibly something never happened before. Southern Miss now with 3 acting head coaches in half of the season. Yeah. Kind of like last week, they tested testing every day this week, like last week, and it was really Friday morning of last week when they had to make the decision not to go to El Paso. Earlier in the week, Scotty Walden said if they would have played at UTEP, they would have only had 44 or 45 scholarship players available. He did say Monday, and this is for his COVID test, he did say that he felt confident that they were getting a lot of guys back. I know specifically there's going to be some defensive linemen back. Looks like they weren't going to be available last week. So they felt, better about it. And then Tuesday happens. Tim Billings, even today, they feel confident about it, but it's got to be what do the tests read today and what do the tests read tomorrow? Either way, it looks like, just like everything, the Golden Eagles will be without some players this weekend and probably without a few key players.
Do we know that number that Scotty Walden gave for last week, where you said only 43, 44, 45 scholarship players that would have been available, was that based on positive tests, close contact tracing, combination of the two? Any idea?
He said 20 were the results of COVID, and he said in no way was that 20 positive tests. He said that mainly that was contact tracing. So, they would have been back up to about 65, and of course, you had 5 to 7 guys transferred, and then, you always have 5 or 10 guys injured. So that's where you get back up to the 85 mark. But yeah, it was 20, and no, he didn't say how many were positive, but a lot of it he said was from contact tracing.
Yeah. Which, as we've discovered, sometimes contact tracing is worse than actually being positive because you're looking at 10 days out versus 14 days out. So,
absolutely.
Interesting stuff. If the game is played this week, I think it's safe to say this is the biggest challenge of the season so far, with a Liberty team that probably should be in the top 25. I think they are just outside the top 25. They're undefeated, and they're coming off a win on the road against Syracuse, in which they rushed for over 300 yards in a single quarter.
They're really good. Quarterback Malik Willis, some people recognize that name. He transferred from Auburn. He's thrown for about 800 yards this year. He's rushed for 400 yards. So he presents the most unique, issue for Southern Miss defense this year. That's the biggest problem, is that he can run and throw. We've seen Southern Miss been unable to defend the pass very well, and so you put Willis in there, and there's no telling what might happen. You saw what Tulane did on the ground against Southern Miss. It's the biggest challenge, and like I mentioned earlier, I think Southern Miss is thankful to get a few defensive players back, and I think even some more defensive players that didn't play against North Texas. We'll see it this week, but yeah, Liberty's really good on defense too. A lot of times you think of a Hugh Freeze coach team, and you think offense. They're only allowing like 269 a game, and so Eagles are going to have to be pretty creative. And Tim Billings made the comment yesterday that he's he feels like he's the last car in the garage that'll run, and he's being the voice of Scotty Walden, and so they got a plan together. And Scotty's been in contact, but man, they got to get creative this week, to stop Liberty on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I misspoke on the rushing. They didn't go over for over 300 in a single quarter. They went over 125 in both the first and second quarters and had over 300 yards rushing for the game. So in terms of looking at Liberty and kind of what they do offensively, you think of a Hugh Freeze team, you generally think of throwing the football. They threw it against Syracuse, but not a lot, only 20 pass attempts in comparison to 48 rushing attempts. How does that stack up with what Southern Miss does well and what they don't do so well?
Well, again, you think of a team that really hadn't been able to stop the rush too well this year, and I think that's what they'll do. I mean, they'll force, they'll try to force them to stack the box and then go over the top. And when you have a defense that's giving up numbers on both sides of the ball like that, it's when you salivate when you watch film if you're an offense, and they're just going to have to again try to put some type of pressure and to force some mistakes possibly. But I'm telling you, Willis has been a good quarterback. Anybody that's watched Liberty and even watched the Syracuse game last week, we talked on the Eagle Hour this week to Nick Pierce, who's the sideline reporter on the broadcast, and just talking about how huge it was for them. I know it's Syracuse, but I mean, you have an independent that goes on the road and wins, and wins an ACC game. I mean, that's huge for them, and it's hard to believe Hugh Freeze already 13 wins in really a season and a half at Liberty. It's a small venue up there, but it's brand new, and their facilities could be classified even as Power 5 type. Anybody that's been up there and seen that, so it'll be a good trip. But the Eagles going to have to get really creative on both sides of the ball to keep it a ball game, I believe.
And the Hugh Freeze angle is obviously one that has been talked about a lot. He is a graduate of Southern Miss. He met his wife there. It was, I think, on with Paul Feinbaum and kind of talking about the fact that they got lots of friends in Hattiesburg. And then, oh, by the way, you've got the saga of Jerry Falwell Jr. no longer being at Liberty and some whispers about legitimate interest, maybe in both directions, about Hugh Freeze potentially as the coach at Southern Miss. Have you heard any of that? Is there anything that you can add to that?
There's a lot of stuff that people are hearing, both in down in Mississippi and in Virginia. Hugh Freeze said at his press conference Monday that they asked him, how was he able to get some of this talk in the back of his mind, and he said, "Well, I just want to beat Southern Miss." I think some Southern Miss fans tried to parse beat into two words to be at Southern Miss. Perhaps, but just to change the subject on it just for a second, I think what this whole situation is frustrating for is that Scotty Walden's not getting his audition, and you can't field a team now. You can't even coach the team, and I think that's why some talk has come up. I think after Saturday, no matter what happens, I think there will be increased talk surrounding Hugh Freeze, and one of the things just hypothetically, you wonder, like a independent school like Liberty, they're just playing for a bowl game every year. And so, just off the top of my head, you think about what do they have to play for, and Freeze may see a job like Southern Miss as a way where he could get back to a Power 5 position. And, anybody that comes to Southern Miss, I think Southern Miss fans know this, they're only going to be here 2 or 3 years, but at least you could reset the program to a place where people want to go nationally. So, it'll be interesting, but you do feel kind of bad for Scotty Walden right now just because this season has not allowed him to fully show what he can do as a coach.
Yeah, your comment about only being there 2 or 3 years is an interesting one. It may be reality, and reality on two fronts. One, if coach comes in and wins, then perhaps there is an opportunity for him to go to a place that's going to pay more or, is a step up in the pecking order. And because the salary is where it is, if you come in and you don't perform, you don't win, then it's not terribly difficult for Southern Miss to make the decision to move on.
Yeah, that's the way it's going to be. I mean, that was one of the things when Larry Fedora was hired. I mean, people knew that he was going to be around or for a little bit and then go. And I think looking back, Todd Monken would have probably stayed one more year, just kind of his opportunity to coach with his buddy at the Bucks. But yeah, I think the best case scenario is you bring it up to a place where you turn it into a destination job for a time being, like an Appalachian State, and we may even see like Coastal Carolina turn it into something like that. But it's a place where somebody can go with rich tradition, they can win, and then they can move on. And if you're winning, 8 games a year, 9 games a year, occasionally 10 games a year, I think the fan base is more than thrilled. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out. Obviously, a big challenge. I guess item number one that you hope for is that the game is actually played, that Southern Miss is able to make the trip, they're able to get there, and then beyond that, you'd love to see them play well and just see how it shakes out. Quick thought, JUCO tonight?
JUCO tonight. I'm in the car right now with Chris Robinson, assistant AD for Jones College. We're headed to Summit to call the game tonight. Jones should have pretty good time tonight. Southwest not very good this year, but we're on the road headed to Summit, and you can listen to that starting at 7 on SuperTalk Law 99.3. Jones should have a field day tonight.
Very good. Thank you as always, Luke. Safe travels.
All right, Richard, y'all, good afternoon. See you later.
Sports Talk Mississippi. We'll be right back. That was Luke Johnson on the Farm Bureau phone line. Check out Facebook.